Loyola University, Chicago, United States of America, and another Masters of Law in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa from University of Pretoria, South Africa. She holds a Bachelor of Law from the University of Aberdeen, Scotland, United Kingdom. Can we welcome Osmeri Isobo on the podium?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. I'm so happy to be in all of you's midst today. As she rightly said, my name is Mary Zobo, and I actually did this for the screen because it's an organization that I founded that actually empowers women and girls, provides support networks, education, and also leadership, addresses gender gaps and gender inequality in line with Aspiration 6 of the African Union Agenda 2063 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Most times when we have to make decisions, it's men making decisions for us as women. In Africa, 55 countries in Africa, only very few women are presidents. We talk about, for example, Ethiopia, Sadok Zewde. We talk about Tanzania and one other country. But then yet we have beautiful, amazing, talented women sitting here who can be presidents, who can be ministers, who can actually head organizations. Now, this takes me to the topic today, which says identifying strategies that can actually be used to ensure gender representation around the table during decision making. It's very important that as women, we represent ourselves during decision making. There is a saying that I usually say to the young girls that I mentor, to say, there's nothing about us without us. How do you make decisions about us when we are not there? How do you talk about gender? How do you talk about period poverty? How do you talk about issues that affect us and we're not there? Let's talk about the recent case of Union against Wade, where they talked about our bodies, sexual health and reproductive rights. It was decided by men, without any woman in sight. Now, this is a chart that actually talks about Africa's women's participation, right? As of 2005, we only had 9% of women being represented at the national parliament. In Africa, we make up half of the population, if not even more. But the question is, why is it that it's men always at the top of institutions? I'm sure if you put a male and a female here, right? One is wearing let's just we go to the hospital, right? And we have a male and a female. I want to ask you, automatically, who would you assume the doctor is? Exactly. But in actual fact, the woman is the doctor and the man is the nurse. When you go and say, there was like a quiz that says, I have a parent. My parent is the CEO of the organization. Guess who we thought that parent was? The father, and not the mother. And who says that the mother is not the CEO? And this is based on gender constructs. This is based on the society that has constantly put us beneath. And that is why I'm so happy about conferences like this, that continues to push us and make us realize how powerful, how valuable we are as women. Now, globally, we make up half of the electorate. We have the right to vote, we have the right to be voted for, and we have a right to represent. In 2021, which is last year, only 24% represent at the national parliament. The question is, why do we have low representation of women in politics? Some people always want to accuse us as women and say, oh, we do not come forward, always giving excuses as to why we should not be at the table, because we deserve to be at that table. Number one is this negative stereotyping of women, of us, by men. Where, oh, women are weak. No, women are not weak. We are actually stronger than men. Emotionally, we can. I'll give an example, which is so funny. When a man is being cheated on, he's almost dying. He cries, he's about to jump off a 10-roof skyscraper and die. But women are being cheated on every single day. We wake up, we do what we're supposed to do. Another example, a man wakes up in the morning, all he does is shower and goes to work. But what do you women sitting in this room today do? You wake up, you cook, you clean, you take care of the kids. It's like sometimes I feel like women have 10 hands. Like the baby's falling, you're trying to catch the baby. You're using one hand to stir the soup. It's like, where are your other hands? Sometimes I think, how many hands do you really have? Do you have 2 hands as men? Do you have 1 hand as a man? Because you do amazing, super things that if you were to put the same man in a position, he can't. He can't even survive one day. Now, there is also the stereotyping through media. Media is always painting women as weak. Oh, you cannot do this. A woman cannot do that. A woman cannot do this. But women constantly break barriers and shatter ceilings when we are given the opportunities. Now, we talk about the unequal division of labor and responsibilities in homes based on unequal power relations. And that takes me back again to the work that we do. If we give the same percentage of work that women do, we say, let's split it. A man wakes up in the morning, he washes the dishes. We divide the work. So let's say, I'm going to give an example of 4. When you wake up in the morning, wash the dish, take the kids to school, feed the kids and cook. If you were to give 2 of that to a man and give 2 of that to a woman, of course, we would get to work early, but even at that, all of that is given to a woman. She still wakes up, goes to work, she still wakes up to study, she still wakes up to do everything. And let's not talk about how amazing the woman is in terms of her body. I don't think a man can get pregnant for 1 second. The emotions that come with pregnancy. A woman is pregnant and she just sits down and she starts crying. She doesn't even know why. All of this, she manages to wake up every morning and do what she's meant to do and conquer the world. Let's go to another reason in terms of social-cultural limitations. When a woman decides now in this room to say, I want to become the president of South Africa, what happens? Nobody wants to fund her. Nobody wants to give her money to help her with her campaign or help her with anything. But the moment a man stands and says, I want to become president, everybody in the room says, oh, I want to give him money, I want to give him money. Why? Because they believe that the man is qualified to be president and the woman is not. But the question is, says who? The next is discriminatory social, cultural, religious practices. Even in churches, even in our homes, automatically, and this is a call to action for us as mothers, as sisters, as daughters. Do you quench your daughter's fire? Do you say, oh, you're too loud? Do you say to her, oh, why are you acting like a man? Why are you too strong? Why are you trying to leave that table? Do you only buy dolls for your daughter? Do you also buy planes for her to say, you can be the first pilot, you can be the first astronaut? All of us here, or some of us here, are guilty when if your female child says, I want to become a pilot, they're like, no, you can't be a pilot. Or the child says, I want to become an astronaut, I want to go to the moon. No. But if it's the boy child that says, I want to become a pilot, it's like, oh, it's okay, you can. The question is, why? What makes, the only difference between the boy child and the girl child in my opinion, and I speak because it's subjective, is the private part. That is the only thing that separates a male child from a female child. We've seen through the Olympics. I'm Nigerian, and just recently, one of our athletes actually won and broke the world record. Nigeria has been in a lot of recession, things are really happening, but she brought such limelight. She became a star for us. A woman, Amosu, that's her name, she did that. The same thing with big professional networks. Again, I'm so glad to see, when I see spaces like this, it brings so much joy to my heart. Spaces that actually encourage women, where we can actually sit and talk about how we, as women, can be better, can do better. And so it's important to have professional networks. If you're not part of any network, please be part of networks, whether in South Africa, regionally, globally. It is very important. The same thing with the electoral systems, where a lot of laws do not support women, and also political parties, how they do not set affirmative actions, which I will discuss in subsequent slides on how they can actually support women. The question is, why do women fall short? We have laws, beautiful laws. If you look at the United Nations laws, you look at the African Union laws, there are a lot of laws that actually support women. Again, it goes back to the social and domestic responsibilities. We talk about gender violence, gender-based violence. In South Africa, that is something that affects a lot of women. A lot of us sitting here, we either know or ourselves have actually suffered from gender-based violence. And the question is, if, for example, you tell your husband or you tell your boyfriend to say, I want to vie for a position, he automatically thinks that, oh, you think you're better than me, you were stronger than me, how come you want to be a president? Because a lot of men, I always say that, a lot of men believe that they can actually, right, they like to date strong women, but I always say they like the idea of a strong woman. They always say, I want you to be the CEO, I want you to be this. But when you become that, what happens? It's a punch, it's a slap. You come back home late after a meeting at 11 p.m. You are met with like hot slaps, serious ones, beating sometimes, or you're being sent out of the house. But if it's a man, he comes back home at 1 a.m. He expects his food to be at the table. And that is why, as women, we must have strong networks where we keep supporting ourselves to say, how can we be better? It's going to be one of the strategies that I'll discuss also in subsequent slides. But the question is to us as women, when things like this happen, what do we do? And I'm also so glad the presentation before me that actually talked about things where even men and even women like us would say, okay, now she wants to become a president. I remember for Rwanda, when the woman wanted to become president, everybody started bringing her nude pictures. They started trying to blackmail her from becoming the president. But when a man's nude is shared, everyone's like, oh, nice, okay. Oh, wow. They talk about the different varying factors of his body parts. Like, have you seen it? You share it, you talk about it. But when it's a woman, she's being shamed. She's useless. How come you put your this on? How come you do this? How come you do that? It's also our perception of how society views women as lesser than and men as superior. There's COVID-19. COVID-19 has exacerbated a lot of things. To the point that Nigerian women, I remember Pumzile, she had talked about, when she was executive director, she talked about gender-based violence as a shadow pandemic that covered COVID-19. Because then women were left in their houses with their husbands, with their partners, and they experienced a lot of gender-based violence. These are the laws and conventions. I'm not going to bore you with all of these laws because as a lawyer, that it always comes up somehow to talk about the laws and talk about the conventions. When you look at the laws and conventions, there are so many. On paper, When you read the laws that women have, the rights that women have, you're like, wow, do I really have this right? From the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Article 18.3 that talks about the elimination of every discrimination against women. Girls, it's there. The Maputo Protocol, which is more of an addendum to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, also talk about affirmative action where women must be in power. We have the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Article 7. We talk about the protocol, we talk about the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Beautiful laws. I'll use an example, Kenya. Kenya has one of the best constitutions in Africa, if not even the world. South Africa has the Bill of Rights on its own that is attached to the Constitution. When you read this, you realize the laws that protect women and girls. But even though we have all of these beautiful things on paper, it's not the case in reality. Now, we talk about women as politicians, we talk about the legal instruments, but it's not about having it on paper. It's what do we do about it as women? How do we take spaces? How do we own spaces? How do we fight? They say a woman mustn't fight. A woman mustn't be political. Politics is a dirty game. But why is it that men can be political and women cannot be political? These are questions that we must ask ourselves. And awaken in us that giant, because in every of us lies a giant where we know that we can do it. Sometimes a man and a woman are vying for a position, and automatically the woman just says, okay, you know, I don't want to get killed, I don't want to get raped, I don't want to get abused, let me step down. But the question, are we as women supporting another woman? Even some of us, we say, oh, why would she be CEO? Can she be CEO? She's going to have to cook, she's going to have to clean, she's going to have to do this, she has her family, she's not going to look after us. We also must extend the same grace that we extend to men. We must extend to ourselves as women, believing in ourselves that we can do it. Now, I'm going to move to the strategies. I've talked about the problems, I've talked about the problems, I've talked about the problems. And most times we talk about the problems without the solutions. How do we as women sit at the table? The first one is this. We must ensure that all of this tradition and customs, we are custodians of custom and tradition. From where I'm from, a woman cannot own property. You can't. You cannot even inherit a property. If you have a father, he can't give you a property. He can't. So even if a man gives birth to 5 children and they are female, guess what happens? They either give to the brother or his other family members. Because as a woman, it's like you don't deserve to own property. But I'm sure a lot of women here today, I'm sure you all have properties. I'm sure you have tenants. I'm sure you live in your own houses. This is a change. This is something that South Africa is getting right. And other countries in Africa has to get that right. Where we can own. My father can't give me property. He can't. Maybe he can now because, we're trying to, I'm educated, maybe I can try to fight. But what about those who cannot fight? You can't even be a chief as a woman. You can't head anything. It always has to be a man. Even if I am a woman, I'm 40, and there's a small boy, he's 8. He can inherit. He can become the chief. He can become whoever he wants to be. Now, that's why we must ensure that all of these customs, all of these traditions needs to be eliminated and done away with because they are in conflict with the human rights, the rights that we have as women to own properties, to become chiefs, to become whoever we want to be. Now, when we look at the modern state, it is very masculine. Let's look at our political structure. It's all men. You look at a meeting, all men. I actually call them bones. You sit in the room, they are all bones, they are no flesh. There's no woman. What happens? How do we stop that? We must ensure that we speak up. They're not I don't think anybody's gonna come and give you power and say take. We must fight for it by ourselves. We must stand up, we must speak up, we must create spaces like this where we continue to speak so that we are given that space. I don't know why it's not changing. It's not changing? The slide. Okay. Now, we need to be treated as human beings with full capacity, agency, and full autonomy. Some women cannot travel some countries. If you're traveling and your husband has not signed to say you can travel, you can't go anywhere. I don't know if any of you know about this. Please, if you know about this, raise up your hand. I just want to know if you know about this. Okay. Like I said, South Africa is quite at par when it comes to, but we must realize that there are other countries, 54 other countries in Africa, where before you can travel, the embassy will tell you, you need consent from your husband. He needs to sign. You take it to the embassy, and then you go. Right? The same thing is when, as a woman, you want to live in a rented apartment. They ask you, where's your husband? Yes. They ask you, where's your husband? Once you say you're not married, they're not giving you that rent. They're not giving you that house. Because they believe that if they give that place to you, you're a woman, you're going to bring in all kinds of men. And they don't want that. Exactly. That is the stereotype. And that is why we must try to break and change that stereotype. Now, if you have a child, sometimes they say, which is always one-sided, a woman has a child, she's a single parent, and they say, the child wants to travel, you must get consent from the father. But now, let's switch the table around. If it's the man who is a single father, which is kind of rare, they don't need consent from the mother. Because the father is seen as the all in all, he just takes the child and goes. Now, all of this, we need to stand up against it. We need to speak up against it. And until we do that collectively, nothing will change. So we as women need to be given that capacity as full human beings as a man. The same way a man is seen is the same way a woman must be seen. The third one is I don't know why. Let me try and see if it's because it's here. I don't know what happened. But basically, the third one is men as allies. If you can please go back to changing the slide. The third one is men as allies. Now, men need to be our allies. Can a husband stand up for a woman and say, this is my wife? Let's look at Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States of America. When she was vying for that position, what happened? Her husband was there the whole time, supporting her, going for those rallies with her, singing. But in Africa, it's like your wife is president and you're dancing. Why? Why are you dancing behind your wife? Why are you dancing behind your wife? Why are you not the one in front and being the president? We go, and what do? Even we as women, we insult the man when I look at him. His wife is trying to contest for election. And look at him. Look at the way he's dancing. Look at the way he's flinging his legs. We insult the man. But when is the woman, when is the man that wants to become maybe a minister or anything and vying for the position? We're like, look at the way she's dancing. She deserves that dance. She's going to be the first lady. Ketanji Brown was going to be the first justice of the Supreme Court. The husband every day was there, giving her coffee. When she cries, we always give her hugs, kisses, supporting her. Because it's a tough game, whether for both male and female. But if the roles were reversed, would we not insult? Some will say, hey, you're giving that man mutsi. Look at him. You have taken him to the Sangoma. We say it. We say it. If the man is busy running after the woman, trying to do anything, they're like, look at the muti and the Sangoma they've cooked on this guy's head. It's the same thing. If you go home, even we are all guilty. I'm sure I'm guilty. I'm sure if my brother is cooking and I go to my brother's house and I see him making the pap, I'll be like, what's going on? And the wife is sitting. It's a problem. It is a problem. Even though I'm sitting here talking about gender equality, I'm sure the first stereotype that I have will be like, did I need to take my mother to church? But if it's a woman that is making that pap and the man is sitting down, it's like it's the right thing. But is it really right? Are we not both individuals, human beings? Even when you're tired, you go to work, your husband goes to work. But why is it that your husband comes back before you? He's sitting, but after you have come back at 9 p.m., you still need to make those meals. We need to be able to have those gender roles and gender balance and allow our husbands help us. Even women here, we're guilty. You're like, let my husband not cook so they don't say that I've done the muti and the sangoma on him. But we must give our husbands also that grace to help us. If they want to help us in the kitchen, allow them help. If they want to take their kids to school, it's their kids too. You didn't make that child on your own. You didn't. If it was possible, I'm sure most women would just go wherever. If you used to eat an apple and be pregnant, I'm sure you eat the apple. You eat 5 apples, get your 5 children, you're done. But you definitely need a man, and you are a co-parent. That's why it's called co-parenting. You are one parent, there's another parent, and then the 2 parents. Allow your husband to help you. Allow your partner to help you. Do not think because he's helping you, he's doing something wrong. He's actually doing the right thing. So women need men as allies. Allow your husband be your ally. Allow your brother, your male friends, let them support you. Let them support us as women. Now, we also need a nuanced approach regarding achieving gender equality and allowing women to sit at the table. Now, we need to invest in education for women. Okay, I'll be done in 5 minutes. Thank you. Now, women need to invest. We need to invest. Are you one of those parents when you say, let me take my boy child to an expensive school? Because he's going to be the president and the minister and the pilot and the astronaut and the medical doctor, the engineer. Let me just take my girl child to this other school. Are you that parent? Are you that parent? The same treatment you give to your male child is what you should give to your female child. Are you that parent that allows your son, comes back from school, throw his bag here, throw his socks here, but you allow your girl child, you must put your bag, you must put your socks. Are you that parent? Because I'm seeing some cutie faces here. Are you that parent? Or are you the parent that actually gives the same treatment? Once your boy child comes from school, you tell him, put your bag here, go wash your school uniform. Or are you that parent that when your child comes from school, you give the school uniform of the boy child to the girl child and tell her to wash hers and that of her boy child? Are you that parent here? I had the opportunity to go to the northern part of Nigeria, and this is very common. A lot of the boys just wake up in the morning and go to school, but the girls have to clean. Sometimes they have to go on the streets to hawk food. They have to go on the streets. After that, still go to school. But guess what? They still come out top in their class. You see why I say women? The energy we have is unmatched. Is it the same thing that we're doing here, where we must give our boy child and our girl child equal opportunities? It starts from us. It starts from every one of us sitting in here today. When your boy child comes from school, he must go watch his uniform. There's nothing that says a girl must cook and a boy mustn't cook. No. It's basic own, will he not eat? Will he not cook to eat for himself? Are you going to be there as a parent for him for the rest of his life? No. Great boys become great men that become great allies for us as women. And I just talked about the women can be nominated for office. And once we have this gender balance, we can have double GDP growth. That is how all of this can actually become great for us as women and as society. Now, there needs to be an introduction of quota system. Not going to this, let me go to the next slide. There is a law that says that every country, globally, in the whole world, at least we must give 30% to women in the parliament, right? Every parliament at least must have 30% women. And I always ask the question, why 30%? Why not 50? Why not 50-50? Because at least we make up half of the electorate. But I see that this has kind of started a good thing, because I'm sure to them, whatever they were thinking was, let's start small, let's start with the low-hanging fruits, and then we get to where we're going to. Rwanda has 61.3%. And look at Rwanda. It's clean, it's great, it's nice. Now, then we have Namibia, followed by South Africa, Senegal, Mozambique, which ranks top 20 globally, and then we have Ethiopia, Burundi, and all these other countries that are following suit. Unfortunately, my country is not even there. Because I think I have 2 minutes, I'm just going to quickly summarize that what we must do, basically, is we must strive to achieve gender equality in the political space. We must try so hard to ensure that there's no one-size-fits-all, but we must start as parents, as mothers, as sisters, as aunties, that even when we see something is going wrong, we go to our friend's house, and we see that the girl child is differently. We should be able to. Our voice must be heard. We must stand. Who says that one of us here cannot be president, minister, CEOs, heading of position? I'm sure you have a lot of women here that are already CEOs of organizations. But we can do more. We can do more. Where Africa, instead of having 5 female presidents, can actually have 50 female presidents. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary. She's young. I'm looking at her bio. She's educated. I was tempted. I thought she's the same age as my daughter.